Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to the OddsNow EFL betting show with me, Gab Sutton, and my co-host for this morning, Matt Hill, dressed in his Carlisle United top this morning as Carlisle United face that battle to stay in the Football League. But a bit of drama, it's fair to say, against Port Vale last time. A 3-0 lead. Then they got it back to 3-2. I think he might have had 10 men as well. And then that Gabe Breeze famous penalty save in the final moments. I mean, how important could that prove to be in the trajectory of Carlisle United?
Yeah, it could be very important. Obviously, it wasn't good for my blood pressure watching that game, to be honest. The Carlisle top has only come out because I just looked down just before we went on to broadcast and noticed that my one of my little girls had smothered toothpaste all over my previous t-shirt. So I thought, why not get the Carlisle top out and try and channel that optimism that comes with 3 wins in a row. But I was having a look at the League Two relegation market earlier, actually, and Carlisle are still 1-6 to go down, which is roughly an 87-88% chance. So try not to get too emotionally invested in this, but it's great to see them going down with a bit of a fight, and obviously huge game at Accrington on Monday, which is massive for both sides. So looking forward to that one. I'm a little bit anxious as well.
Well, in 1999, it was a last-minute intervention from a goalkeeper, that kept you in the Football League. So you never know, whether it's 26 years on, 20.
Yeah,
something like that.
26. Yeah,
some sort of symmetry. But that we'll see, depending on what the result is tomorrow. How do you feel about our results on Good Friday?
Yes, very pleased with mine. 2 out of 3 again. The only one that let me down was the one I think we both fancied the most, Wrexham, to win both halves against Bristol Rovers. 1-0 down at half-time. I couldn't believe that score when I checked it. Excuse me. But Georgie Kelly doing the business again. 4-1 anytime goal scorer against Port Vale. I should have backed him first goal scorer. That's 2 weeks in a row I've put him up any time and he scored first. So, but we mustn't get greedy. That was a good result. And then had a winner in the Championship as well, which is just evading me at the moment, but I'll get that up to confirm. Gab, I'm not so sure about your results. I know you definitely got one up.
I tell you what, if you bear with me for one moment, I can, because I do tend to WhatsApp you, so I've got that on my desktop.
Yeah.
If I can get those across. That was
there you go.
This shows the level of our professionalism.
I know. I have found yours. So you had Millwall to win 2-0 at Blackburn. Obviously, got a bit of a tonking, which was a one I backed as well. Actually, I was with Millwall, but you did have Accrington double chance, and I believe Northampton double chance went down quite late on, didn't they? They lost 2-1. Is that right?
Yes, Northampton were beaten. So Accrington Stanley again. I did have a feeling Stanley might get a result there. Not sure how much I'm ready to trust this Salford City side. So a mixed afternoon for me, but
Bristol City to beat Sunderland was my other winner, which needed a bit of intervention from a red card, but we'll take them where they come. So 7-5, 4-1, and evens winners from 6 selections. So I think that was a good effort all round, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this stage of the season, Matt. I mean, slightly different for you having skin in the game, but it's so exciting when you're going into games and game weeks knowing everything's on the line,
Yeah, I think there's some good angles to be found as well. I mean, I should just remind everyone, this is the OddsNow EFL betting show, and I normally do a little bit of spiel about if you're watching for the first time, but effectively what we try and do on this show is me and Gab will pick a game each from the Championship, League One and League Two, and try and give you a sort of betting angle for that game and justify our selection and have a bit of back and forth about it. But yeah, I think with my betting hat on, it's always nicer to be having a wager on things when you know that it means everything kind of to a team, and there is no room for error kind of thing. And then on the other hand, we do have these angles where sometimes you find teams that don't have anything to play for at all. And generally, I think people's approaches is to avoid those games because you just don't know where the mentality is at. But actually, sometimes that can create angles in itself. I mean, how often do we see a team in mid-table that ends a season really, really well and carries that momentum into the following season? So I think even for these sides that it looks like the season's sort of done and dusted, there's still a lot to be said for finishing your season with a good run of results rather than limping over the line, which can often fester into the following season, I find.
depending on how much turnover there is in terms of
True.
players,
True.
for sure. I'm really excited to get into our selections for this weekend. I'll let you kick things off, Matt.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll start with the championship as is usual practice, and I'm going to go for a game that does have some importance on it. Hull are taking on Preston in Humberside, and these are two sides who will still be sweating over their championship safety. I think Preston, come on, they've surely done enough. I think not by their own merits in recent weeks, but just the fact that there's enough teams between them and the drop zone. When we've only got 3 games to go, you're needing a lot of like a freakish set of results, probably to occur twice to drag them into it. So I think they've done enough, but I don't think Paul Heckingbottom will be happy with the way that Preston are finishing this season. They really are dropping a lot of points. When Heckingbottom came into the club, I thought that he made a really quick, instant impact, and sort of did what I expect him to do, just solidified Preston, made them really, really tough to beat, got their away form better again. But I think, limping towards the finish would be my assessment of them here. They obviously had that great cup run, which was ended by Aston Villa in the quarterfinals. And I think I said a few weeks ago on the show, I do like to see clubs like Preston have a cup run because they haven't had a lot to shout about over the last decade or so, just kind of mid-table championship, most seasons, occasional flirting with relegation. So it was nice for the fans, but I do wonder whether since going out of that cup, it's just derailed things a little bit. I think they've only picked up 2 points from the subsequent 5 games. And like I say, their safety isn't still mathematically assured. I was chatting to a Preston fan the other day who described them as sinking without trace. I think that was probably a bit of an overreaction, but I do sort of get his standpoint that it's not an encouraging end to the season. Now they take on a Hull side here who are also still fighting for their lives and still very much in danger of the drop. A disappointing 1-0 loss for Hull last time out at Swansea. And I think they'll be placing so much importance on this game with Preston at home against a team, like I say, that are really, really struggling, ending the season with a whimper. As a Hull fan, you're probably thinking, if we can't win this, we are in real trouble here. That it's the kind of the fixture that you'd be wanting against a fellow struggler, but somebody who's got maybe less to lose than yourself. But the angle for this game, I want to back under 1.5 goals in this game at 2-1. And that basically means the 0-0 or a 1-0 to either side will get us a winner here. I think at 2-1, this is well worth chancing because I was looking into the XG of these two teams in recent times. And I've used the last 6 games as what I would say a fair sample is of form. And between them, across 12 performances, only Preston once have managed to create over a goal's worth of XG in a single game. Both sides really, really struggling to create chances. And I thought that was really evident for Hull, in particular against Swansea, barely creating anything. They actually managed 0.56 of XG. And in that run I talk about, they've not even got close to creating 1 goal's worth of XG, apart from the 1-1 draw with Coventry. They're just creating absolutely nothing. And that would really, really worry me against the Preston side who, to be honest, have been conceding a lot of goals. I really just do think it suits Preston to just come here, set up shop against a whole team struggling for goals and confidence and maybe look to get a 0-0 or a 1-0 just to sort of snap the streak, secure safety. And I could see it being a really frustrating afternoon for Hull. I was half tempted by Preston at 3-1, to be honest, but I just have questions over motivation levels a little bit. So I thought playing the unders on the goal and going nice and aggressive with under 1.5 goals was maybe the way to play this one at 2-1.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a problem that Hull have going forward in terms of threatening teams. They've had times earlier in the season where they've really been able to go away from home and pull off some really big performances away to some top sides. Like you think of that 3-0 victory at Sheffield United around sort of late winter time. But they've not really been able to sort of build on that, and they're continuing to sort of hover just above the relegation zone. So yeah, I'm a little bit apprehensive about Hull. I think they're a club that's made a lot of bad choices over the last 12 to 18 months, and yeah, there's a possibility that comes home to roost.
Yeah, it's a shame as well because, like you say, I feel like we talked about it in the last couple of weeks actually. Whether some relegations feel inevitable, but some do feel avoidable, and like some of the quality in that whole squad, really, it is a bit of a shame that they find themselves in this situation. But there's no guarantee they'll go down. There's a lot of teams still in the mire in this championship mix, and the ones that we thought were down are all kind of showing signs of life. So I'm sure it's got to go down to the last day. Certainly Preston will be hoping they can sort things out before then, I'm sure. But yeah, that's the play for me. Under 1.5 goals in Hull Preston is 2-1 with Bet365. Gab, over to you for your championship selection on Easter Monday. And you have got behind Portsmouth at times this season with, I would say, good success. And you're going to chance them again here. They are odds against that, just shy of 6-5 to beat Watford at home on Easter Monday. They had that fantastic, crazy game with Norwich on Friday. Tell us a little bit about why you're keeping the faith with Pompey here.
Yeah, they were. I think on the selection card I had Portsmouth at 18-5 for the weekend. So just by the way, I mentioned for Gordon, I'm following Gab now for a long time. So I'll soon be eating tin beans. Well, I got an 18-5 winner on on Good Friday. So just remember that. No, I think Portsmouth again, really good attacking performance from them at Carrow Road. This wasn't, one of those games where, every shot a team has ends up in the net, and it's just one of those crazy games. Portsmouth did create a lot of chances. They were all over Norwich, and they could have scored more. I think with Matt Ritchie and the quality and the work ethic that he brings on the right, the direct play of Josh Murphy on the left, and you've got Adil Ayasish, who on loan from Sunderland, who brings a lot of vision and creativity in that number 10 role, and Colby Bishop, who's pretty much the perfect hold-up striker. And John Mousinho says he's one of the best strikers in the league, even without his goals. And I think you put all those four into the melting pot and the form that they've been in. I think Portsmouth do have the tools to cause problems for Watford side, who since the turn of the year have been one of the most out of form sides in the league. They've sort of still been in the playoff conversation because it's a low bar for the playoffs and because they accumulated a lot of points in the first half of the season. But really, I think their season's dead and buried. Competitive enough performance against Burnley on Friday, but I really like the play on Pompey here, and I think at 57 to 50 with AK bets, I think that's great value for a team with exceptional home form.
Yeah, you gave Portsmouth a good shout in our punters panel to beat Norwich, actually. So fair play. That was a good call. But I am actually agreeing with you on everything you say about Portsmouth. I just found this season, I found Watford a very tricky team to get right. They're very inconsistent. They do have a lot of match winners in that side, like that can just turn it on and score spectacular goals. But I guess Watford were kind of accepting their season as almost done now, and maybe motivational levels as well questionable there.
Yeah, I think I actually really like what Tom Cleverley's trying to build. I think that it was a really difficult season for Watford because whereas in previous years we've talked about Watford as one of the promotion front runners, and often they've been in the Championship with regards to having parachute payments, and we've talked about a club with lots of expectations. This season the expectations were much lower, and so on the whole I still think Tom Cleverley's done a good job to maximise his resources, and we've seen the development of some players from last season like Kwadwo Bar, Georgi Takvatadze, Matty Pollock as well. So I do think some good work's been done at Vicarage Road, but I just think going to Fratton Park at this stage of the season, unless you're facing one of the top three sides in the league, I think that's one of the most difficult assignments. So, and also add to the fact that Portsmouth have the opportunity to mathematically rubber stamp their Championship safety with a win. So I think 57 to 50 is a great value there.
Yeah, okay, then odds against play for Gab to start proceedings in the Championship. We'll move on to League One then for my selection. And I'm staying with the goals theme, actually, but I'm going on the opposite direction here. Cambridge and Leyton Orient. I think this has goals written absolutely all over it here. Over 3.5 goals is going to be my play at 13 to 5, so just north of 5 to 2 there. It's a big price, but I think it's with good reason that we get on this. Look at Leyton Orient's recent games as a starting point. They've been involved in some real goal fests, haven't they? The last 3 games have been 3-2, 3-1, and 4-3. The 4-3 being a dramatic and crucial comeback against Barnsley, finding themselves 3-1 down with about 25 minutes to go and managing to turn that game around. It's a result which, combined with Reading's defeat, has actually brought the O's back into the playoff places with 3 games to go. It is back in their hands technically, although I'm not sure I have faith in any of these teams to win 3 straight matches. There's a lot of wobbling at this stage of the season, isn't there? So I think just taking it on a game-by-game basis for every team that's involved in these kind of mini scraps at the minute is probably the way to go. But look, theoretically, they've got it back in their hands. Richie Wellens will be really, really delighted with the spirit that his team has shown, I think, because there was a point a few weeks ago where it looked like their season was really, really petering out. I think they went 5 or 6 games without a win. So I've been really impressed that they've managed to dust themselves down and get back into this playoff scramble. I think whatever happens, this has been a great season for Leyton Orient, and I really do like them as a club. Love the way that they've built and the foundations they've got, and a lot of the players have kind of come through with them in the last 3 or 4 years as well, which I always think is fundamental to when you're a low budget in the division relative that you're in. It, having that good core of players who've been there for a while, it really does help, I think. So really like Orient, but this is not going to be a cakewalk for them, because Cambridge maybe thought they were down and out a couple of weeks ago. To be fair, they've pulled a couple of great results out the fire. We talked about Neil Harris and his ability to make an instant impact when he comes into clubs, and he did exactly that with Cambridge. But then when that instant impact sort of wore off a little bit, I personally thought, okay, I don't think they've got quite enough to remain in this division. But some massive results, not least last time out on Easter Monday. I think, was it Huddersfield?
It was at Huddersfield. Yeah, that's a great result.
It was fantastic, and it's given them a fighting chance now. But they are almost at the point of no return, to be honest. I think they have to. 5 points is the gap with 3 games remaining. They've got to be targeting 3 wins. 2 wins and a draw might get it done if they. But I fancy Burton to pick up more points. So I just think they've got to go for the 3 wins and see where that leaves them. And I don't think they'll be leaving anything to chance here against Orient. Now, Cambridge, I always think quite good for a goal. Orient, good for a goal. But I don't really trust either of these two at the back as well. And I think all we need here is an early goal for either side to light the touch paper. And you talked about it a couple of weeks ago, Gab, when there's a game where both teams simply have to win and nothing else will do. It's basically basketball. They're both going to go for it. You just need that early goal. That's all you need. And this could be an absolute goal fest. And like I say, over 5-2 on over 3.5 goals. It's landed in Orient's last 3 games. I see no reason why Cambridge will be cagey. So that run may well continue here.
I think the other factor to possibly play in, to include into this, is that a draw is kind of no good to either side. Cambridge desperately need the win.
Yeah, correct.
And for Leyton Orient to finish in the top 6, we can presume there's a good chance that Reading win at Mansfield, and therefore Leyton Orient needs to win to stay in the top 6 on goal difference. So that nudges it towards the point of view that neither side can afford to sort of quote unquote settle for a draw. So we could see a second half that's very end to end, and there's always going to be at least one team that's chasing something. So I think that's that points it toward. And I think put it
this way, Gab, if it was 2-1 either way in injury time, I think the keeper's going up from the losing side if there's a corner. Do you know what I mean? It is that kind of game, and that, like, I just think there's no other point of the season where you get this
Matt,
kind of game.
We could get to a stage of the season where it's 2-2 in injury time and both keepers are up.
Well, they do need the wins. I mean, yeah, why not? You got to do these things, yeah. But it is, isn't it? There's no other point of the season now where you're thinking like a draw, yeah, like any other circumstances. You take draws, don't you? But draws are just no good now for a lot of these teams.
Absolutely. And I think the permutations, you've got to really factor that in at this stage, because for most of the season, you've got to look at the form and how many goals have these teams scored and what's the, and work it out that way. Whereas I think at this stage of the season, a lot of it's actually about what does this team need? And therefore, you're going to get a good idea of what their psyche is going to be. Yeah, spot on. Well, yeah, fingers crossed for that one. Then that is 30-5 with live score and Unibet and BetMGM, etc. So widely available. Cambridge versus Leyton Orient over 3.5 goals. Sticking in League One for your pick, Gab. I talk about Cambridge
giving themselves a little bit of a sniff, but they're going to rely on Burton not picking up any more points, really. And you actually think Burton might pick up a point or three on Monday against your side, Birmingham, who have wrapped up the league. And do they just have their feet up a little bit, Gab? A 0-0 draw with Crawley on Easter Friday, and now another relegation struggling side, threatened side in Burton come. But Burton, like I say, a really big chance to take a leap towards safety if they can cause a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I think I went to Wembley last Sunday, and I think while it wasn't an appalling performance from Blues, you could see that there is a little bit of fatigue setting in. And I think that we're getting to a stage of the season where I think Chris Davis would probably be, I think it would be a good idea for him to rotate and freshen things up and give other players a chance just to bring that bit of fresh energy into the team, because I think some of these players who have hit incredibly high standards over the course of campaign, just a little bit coming towards, and I think that does. So I think from that point of view, the timing of the fixture massively favours Burton Albion, because if this game was being played at any other stage of the season, I would give them very little chance. But because it's at this stage of the season, this is the golden time, I think, to play Birmingham at home. Again, first half against Crawley was pretty good and we could have scored 2 or 3, but the second half there was a bit of a drop off. And I think that is going to give encouragement to a Burton Albion side that have found sort of mid-table form pretty much since Gary Bowyer took charge. A lot of the defeats that we've seen from Burton Albion actually came in the first 3 or 4 months of the season. And actually since then, they've kind of steadily picked up. So 3 wins in the last 6 with a draw in there as well. So, yeah, I think Burton Albion, they've given themselves a chance, and I think they might get something against Birmingham City.
Okay, yeah, well, it is a big price. You're getting odds against with the draw on side at 11 to 10. It's very difficult, isn't it, Gab, with this kind of bet, because you are taking on a side in Birmingham who have players that are just of such a higher quality compared to the rest of the division, that you can make the strongest case in the world for them being, mentally not there and stuff, this and that. But it only takes a couple of moments of real quality from a side like Birmingham, and they will be able to cut through. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that you have a good trust in Burton's ability to go and put on a good performance. I think it is also Burton's reliability factoring into this bet, not just Birmingham are undercooked. Is that fair?
Well, it's Burton Albion's reliability. Added to that, their defensive strength. They've come into this game off the back of successive clean sheets. They've got a really good goalkeeper in Max Crocombe, who's an excellent shot stopper at this level. They've got Ryan Sweeney at the back, who's been incredibly reliable this season. Udeka Godwin Malif as well on the right of the back three, who's a real athlete. Owen Dodgson looks like a fantastic signing in January. Another real athlete at left wing back. So I think there's a lot to like about Burton Albion under a manager who knows how to organise teams without the ball. And I think we're seeing that in their results. The fact they beat Huddersfield 3-0. I know Huddersfield have struggled a lot recently, but I still think with somebody like Roman Burrell and the pace and strength that he's brought, JJ McKinnon as well from midfield, a very strong runner. I think Burton Albion have got the players who can kind of get through the graft required defensively, but also in terms of carrying the ball up the pitch. I think they've got some legs in there. So that's why I would say Burton Albion might be able to get a result, just because, again, their form, like the first 3 months of the season, they were rock bottom under Mark Robinson. But since Gary Bowyer took charge, the results have really stabilised. And I think, but also the permutations, the fact that a result is everything to Burton Albion and comparatively little to Birmingham City. So I think Burton are going to get something.
Well, I must say I'm more encouraged about them having listened to your analysis than I was beforehand. Actually, I'm going to be watching that game with real interest now, because I kind of had it in my head that Burton would have to wait a little bit to secure their safety, but maybe not. Maybe they can go and get something. Gab certainly thinks so. That's 11 to 10 about Burton, or the draw against already crowned League One champions Birmingham, who may be feeling the pinch a little bit. Well, we go into League Two. And I'm sorry in advance here, because I like to offer up original thinking and original selections on a weekly basis on this show. And they might not always win, but I like to think I always carve out slightly different angles. However, I've been boring in the last couple of weeks. I've put up Georgie Kelly to score anytime. This is the third time in a row I've done this, but if it isn't broke, don't fix it. We've had him at 10-3 anytime against Morecambe, scored. We've had him at 4-1 against Port Vale, scored. And we're now getting 7-2 here again, which I just think is massive. So I see no reason to keep to shy away from it. With Carlisle taking on Accrington. We've already touched on it at the start of the show. It is the ultimate kind of do or die game. I think Carlisle will, be quite possibly mathematically down, but certainly all but down if they don't win this game. They have dragged Tranmere back into it over the weekend with Tranmere losing at Doncaster and both Carlisle and Accrington win it. So I think the gap is 4 points from Carlisle to Tranmere, 6 points from Carlisle to Accrington. So Carlisle obviously hoping to go there and win this game, half that gap to Accrington. And if Tranmere were to drop points against Barrow, maybe make inroads there as well.
And by the way, Matt, 7 points to Harrogate as well. Thanks.
Yeah, shouldn't count them out. I mean, I was looking. I mentioned at the start of the show, I was looking at the League Two relegation market, and Harrogate they're at 100-1. They do still have to go and get a result to secure their safety from the last 3 games, because the teams below them have momentum. I think all to differing levels. I think Carlisle will be eyeing up 3 more wins, having just strung off 3 wins against decent opposition, and like Tranmere and Accrington, frustratingly from my perspective, but to their credit, they keep picking up points as well. So I don't think Harrogate, I think they will need another win just to make sure. So yeah, it's an interesting picture. But I think just in terms of this particular bet, I've made the same argument a couple of weeks in a row here. I think Kelly's threat has still not really been factored in properly by the betting market here. And I think it is a case of there's quite a small sample of data on him. He's only played 5 or 6. He's only made 5 or 6 starts in the last 2.5 years due to a rotten run of injuries. And then before that, he was very much an impact sub for Rotherham up in the Championship. Unfortunately, his career has kind of been on hold. And actually, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, he became a little bit of a figure of ridicule at one point among Carlisle fans, because he just they signed this man. They've never seen him play barely. He's just constantly injured. And, he makes a comeback and then he has another 6 months out. And it must have been bitterly frustrating period for Kelly, because we're now seeing the quality he possesses, and it is very frustrating from a Carlisle perspective to think if this had been in the team even 5-10 games earlier, they'd almost certainly be out of trouble now, because he's just very, very intelligent centre forward, and this is becoming more and more apparent on a weekly basis. The runs he's making, the finishes are all really, these aren't tap-ins he's scoring. There's tricky headers, cross goal finishes into the bottom corner. He's got a real array of finishes in the locker, and his hold up and link up play is fantastic as well. And while he continues to be priced in at above 3-1 to score any time, because I think strikers, I've said this again, and I'll say it for the benefit of anyone who doesn't watch previous weeks, I think strikers in an informed side, when we're looking to back them to score any time, should be somewhere between evens and maybe 6-4, and then for a less informed side, I'd go as high as kind of 5-2. But when you're getting into 3-1 about the main centre forward, and we're getting north of that once again here, someone who scored 4 in 3 here is really, really in form. I just think you've got to back it, and I'm sorry it's not an imaginative selection, but if it wins again, then we can all collect our money, and we could, I'm sure we'll all deal with it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, he's been in fantastic form, hasn't he, Georgie Kelly? And it's great to see him sort of rekindling that promise that we saw from him at Rotherham United. It is looking like a big ask, though, isn't it, Matt, in terms of the bigger picture for Carlisle United? Because if it was Accrington Stanley or Harrogate who are 4 points off, I would say you've got a fair chance of catching them. But because it's Tranmere Rovers, I expect them to take a fair few points off Barrow, Crewe and Newport. And so it does look like it. And you add the goal difference into the melting pot as well to Stanley and Harrogate. And it does look like a bit of a jump.
It's looking tough. I think they can only take it one game at a time, as they have been doing. If they beat Accrington here, then the gap is 3. Now we'll effectively call it 4 with Accrington's superior goal difference. So it's still it still looks a big task on paper. But Accrington's last 2 games, they've got to go to Walsall, and then they're at home to Chesterfield on the last day. And I still think Chesterfield have got a sniff of the playoffs. Whether they will on the last day or not is questionable. But I'm hoping, from my perspective, that both Walsall and Chesterfield have something to play for against Accrington, because that will make it 2 tough games for them. And you know, that does bring us into the mix. I think
that's
if you'd
probably your best chance, isn't it?
Yeah, I still think it is.
Winner,
as good as it was to see the gap reduced, I desperately wanted Salford to get something against Accrington. They feel like the team we could catch, particularly with having that game against them to directly affect their points tally. But it's looking like a long shot. I think Carlisle can only do what they could do. If they go to Accrington and win tomorrow, they've done, you know, they've done very well to take it to the last 2 games, given the bleak situation they were in 2 or 3 weeks ago. It is going to feel like a frustrating relegation now if they do go down, because of the form that they've shown at the back end of the season. Of course, over Christmas, lost games to Morecambe, to Tranmere, to all the teams around them. These were the games that will effectively relegate Carlisle if they do drop. It won't be you know, we run out of games. No, we had the games and we didn't get going quickly enough, unfortunately. I think Georgie Kelly's injury problems clearly have impacted, and they have had a bit of bad luck here and there. Charlie White broke his leg in November. I'm sure he would have made a big difference up front just for his experience and nous more than anything. But yeah, ultimately the resources available and the catalogue of errors that we've talked about over this season from the club internally will ultimately probably prove costly. But it's nice to be taking it to the latter stages anyway. And yeah, for the purposes of the betting show, Georgie Kelly once again 10-3 anytime goal scorer against Accrington. I hope he could do the job there. Gab, we'll move on then to the final selection of this week's show and your League Two pick. Notts County, we've not mentioned them for a few weeks. One of your favourites. I've got you down as a closet Notts County fan in League Two, closet Northampton fan in League One.
I know. I like to alternate between
Portsmouth in the Championship, maybe. Yeah, you've got your favourites, but I think we all do, don't we? But look, Notts County, you've kind of left them alone for a few weeks, and they have been wobbling at times a little bit, County, but they're not alone in that. Everyone at the top of League Two seems to not want to win the league, not want to get automatics. It's all very after you, sir, kind of thing. But Notts County, I think it's looking like playoffs. We'll see. A lot can change in these next three fixtures, but they're playing a side here in Cheltenham who I personally think have for a lot of their recent games look to have down tools to meet some of the performance levels compared with what they were producing earlier in the season, just nowhere near. And I appreciate it's hard to motivate yourself when you're kind of rooted in mid-table. You're not going up or down, but we talk about game state here. Notts County certainly need this more. We've seen nerves from Notts County, I think, at times, and not quite functioning quite as they do when they're on song. But this should be a relatively routine game for them, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I thought they played very well at Bradford on Thursday night, I think it was. I thought...
draw, was it? I think 1-1?
Yeah, it was a 1-1 draw, yeah. I think George Abbott looked like a really strong controlling presence in midfield, and he looks like a really big talent on loan from Tottenham Hotspur. Great for them to have Jody Jones back fit as well for the business end of the season. I think that's invaluable for them. And Jacob Badeau as well, I thought was outstanding on the left of the back three. So yeah, I think they've got a template there that they can take forward into the home game against Cheltenham Town, who have some players who can cause problems going forward in Ethan Archer and Jordan Thomas, who are going to be to Robin's 2 big assets going into the summer. But I also think Notts County, with the quality of Dave McGoldrick and Alassane Jatta, they're going to have more than enough. So what I've done is I've tipped up Notts County to win, but I've gone with over 1.5 goals, just if you want a bit more juice in the price, because I think it would have been something like 8-15 to get the outright.
Basically just taking the 1-0 out of the equation, aren't you?
Exactly, yeah. So I think that I don't think it'll be 1-0. I think Notts County will either win by 2-0 or with more goals, or it might be, Cheltenham with the quality of Archer and Thomas maybe grabbing 1 or 2 for themselves. But I think Notts County will win.
Notts County, Gab, I just want to pick your brains on Alessandro Jatta, who is enduring a bit of a goal drought at the moment. Having been fantastic in front of goal for the bulk of this season. I think he's now 8 or 9 games without a goal. And at one point, it was him and Michael Cheek were locked on level for the Golden Boot, and it just hasn't quite happened. The goals have been coming from elsewhere, namely Dave McGoldrick has stepped up in his absence and stuff. But with Jatta, where do you see his future? Do you think he's destined to leave Notts County next summer? Because to me, I think he's got that profile that a lot of teams would be willing to take a gamble on from a higher level. He's physically strong, still developing. Yes, he's having a goal drought now, but has previously shown a good eye for goal. And it feels like they're going to have a lot of interest in him. I know they did really well to stave off that interest in January, but it's a different beast in the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when Notts County had Macaulay Langstaff last season, he was more the one for kind of sniffing things out of the back stick, almost a bit like a young Billy Sharp, if you like. Whereas I think with Alessandro Jatta, because he's a different physical profile, he's more about being really aggressive and going for the near post or the first contacts, if you like. And I think. I think his physical profile is going to be a big attraction higher up the leagues. I look at how Langstaff struggled at Millwall, maybe with the physicality of the Championship. I don't think Jatta would have that problem stepping up the leagues because of that, because of the way he presses. The threat from crosses is obviously going to be a big attraction for teams who play that way as well. But I also think that because he is such a big sort of unit, if you like, sometimes maybe he doesn't have the agility maybe of other strikers in terms of the ball to feet. So he's got strengths and weaknesses, but I think in the right system, I think he can cause problems.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a 5 starts without a goal now for Jatta, but he also missed a couple. He was benched for a couple as well, so a little bit of a concerning drop off for Notts County's perspective. The wrong time for your top scorer to be going out of form, but still time for him to rediscover his scoring touch. It may well be here against Cheltenham, who to me, have looked a little bit on the beach. Might as well get that in. I don't think we've got that in this week. I better get it in just before we wrap up.
On the beach.
And that is 8-11 for Notts County to win with over 1.5 goals in the match. Well, just to finish then, Gab, if you want to bring the best bets up onto the screen and we can round up our main fancies. We'll start with yours, mate. Portsmouth to beat Watford 57-50 with Unibet. Burton win or draw, double chance against Birmingham 11-10. So over double your money if Burton do get any kind of result there. And then Notts County in over 1.5 goals versus Cheltenham is 8-11 with Betfair. What would be your nap or the bet you like most this weekend, Gab?
I'm going to play at Pompey.
Okay, well, they've served you well recently, haven't they? So. Yeah. I don't mind that. Yeah, I just I quite like. I mean, Notts County for me feels very safe, and it's more of a. I've got my concerns about Cheltenham, so I think that's rock solid. I do like Pompey. I'm just a little bit scared of taking on Watford. I just think they're so unpredictable. But yeah, look, Portsmouth's been fantastic in recent times, and like you said, it'd be nice for them to secure their survival, which is a great achievement for John Mousinho. Okay, if we bring mine up then, Hull Preston under 1.5 goals is 2-1, whereas I'm predicting a goal fest at Cambridge Leyton Orient over 3.5 goals there is 13-5 with a few different bookmakers. And Georgie Kelly, do us a hat-trick. We've had 2 winners in 2 betting shows with Georgie Kelly to score any time. He still remains 10-3 with Bet365 to do it again, and we shall see. Gab, any of them that you like, take your fancy?
I think, I would probably go. I'm going to go with Georgie Kelly. I'm going to get on the train.
It's not too late. Everybody get on. Not too much. I don't want the prices to go, but it's served me well, to be honest. It's softening the blow of National League relegation. Put it that way. But yeah, obviously.
Well, if you win all that money from the bets on Georgie Kelly to score any time, you can take over Carlisle United.
This is it. Yeah, I mean, if he does it about 78 more times in a row, then we might be onto something there. But yeah, no, look, it's nice to be going down with a fight, as I say. Let's hope the fight's still continuing by the next time we talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the EFL Betting Show. If you are having a bet on Easter Monday, please do gamble responsibly. We really appreciate everybody tuning in and supporting us. You could go give OddsNow a follow over at OddsNow_ on Twitter or OddsNow TV on YouTube. You can subscribe, and we've got lots of sports betting content on there as well. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for having me on, Gab. And we'll be back again next Saturday to preview the penultimate round of EFL fixtures. Exciting times. Go well. See you soon.